Hi, everybody. This week I am recording our tailboard chat. I will be out of town all week. I have to go down to Florida to help my father move. So I will not be near Wi-Fi or computer from tomorrow morning, Sunday morning until at least Friday. So as far as grading, I've graded everything that's come in so far. And then Wendell Thomas, another one of the Cherry Valley AIMs, will be grading the rest of your work on Monday. So if you have a question about the grading after Monday, he'll be the one grading it. However, like I said, I will not be on computer or near Wi-Fi, but I will always have my phone with me. So if you have something pressing or questions you want to ask about the homework, please feel free to text me, or you can even phone me. Text is a little bit easier, but feel free to text me and I'll do my best to get back to you. I'll be doing a lot of driving. I got to drive down to Florida in a U-Haul, so I might not get back to you right away, but I will try to get back to you, as quickly as I can. So, okay. Like I said, I have graded so far everything that's come in. So for week 5 assignments anyway. And so far everything's looking pretty good. The only thing that I will say consistently that needs to be clarified is what a folding ladder is. The folding ladder is, in the fire service anyway, commonly referred to as an attic ladder. Many of you wrote that a folding ladder had multiple hinges and was used for uneven terrain. That may be a definition of a folding ladder, but in the firefighting industry, the folding ladder is specifically the attic ladder. And that is a ladder where the rungs pivot so that the beams, so the beams fold in on themselves. It makes it very narrow, compact, and easy to carry into a building. It's called an attic ladder because it's pretty much specifically meant to be used inside of a building for going through scuttle holes and things like that. Okay. I didn't fail anybody because they didn't know, write down the correct definition of a folding ladder, but you should know what it is. It's a very common ladder in the fire service. If you have an engine, there's probably about, I almost guarantee that you have one on there. So they're usually come in 10-foot lengths. And like I said, they're meant for going into scuttle holes and things like that, getting into attics, basically. So that's what a folding ladder is in the fire service. Okay. And I actually did discuss this last week on the VLS. So, for those of you who can't attend in person, I totally understand that, but do please try to watch recordings. I keep it generally within half an hour, so not very long, but I do try to go over the homework. So, give you guys hints and make sure that you do well. So, all right, so that's all I have to discuss about for week 5. Week 6, I will go ahead and I will share that assignment and we will talk about week 6 and what we're looking at. Okay. All right, here we go. So this week we're doing structural search and rescue. This is a pretty important week. Again, we're like, as with the hose and ladders and stuff, we really are getting in the meat and potatoes of what we're doing, the actual work. And search and rescue is one of the more intense things that we do as firefighters. This is really what we sign up for, right? Fire extinguishment and rescue, right? Those are the things that we want to do, put fires out and save people. So search and rescue is a very important chapter. Very important practicals to pay attention to and try to do it right. When you're doing search and rescue in a structure fire, these are really hot, intense, generally low visibility incidents and scenarios. And you really have to be on your game, both for your own safety and for the safety of the people that you work with. So read the material, pay attention to your instructors and the practicals, and work hard to get it right, because this is really the craft and the art of firefighting here. Okay. All right. So question 1, list and describe 5 Mayday situations you may encounter. So this chapter is a little bit weird. They start out discussing Maydays on page 435 and 436, which are almost the first pages of the chapter. And then they come back to it again and page 468, so like 30 pages later, and actually describe how to call a Mayday. Okay. So what is a Mayday? I mean, a Mayday is, when you're calling for help, either for yourself or for a fellow firefighter. So when we talk about communications, there's a terminology also, emergency traffic. So these are, critical radio ground communications or fire ground communications on the radio, emergency traffic and mayday. Okay, emergency traffic is anytime you need to get command's attention right away about some urgent or critical situation on the fire ground. So if you say over the radio, emergency traffic for command or command emergency traffic, okay, that's going to get everybody's attention and they're going to shut up, they're going to clear the airwaves, and then you can go ahead, command will confirm with you, go ahead with your emergency traffic for command, and then you'll go ahead and transmit your message. So emergency traffic is anything that's like critical, imminent building collapse, or maybe you spotted a victim through a window on the back or something like that. There'll be an emergency traffic situation. Mayday is an emergency traffic, but it's a very specific emergency traffic, and it is where you are declaring your need for help, either for yourself or for a fellow firefighter, for survival, so you are requesting resources. So that's what a mayday is. And the 5 situations for it, they can be found on page 435 and 436, very simple, I'm not going to list, probably won't list them all, but, you lose, you're running low on air, you lost sight of your crew, you don't know where you are, you're trapped, okay, in debris. Okay, these are, mayday situations. One thing I will say about mayday is that, if you feel like you need it, don't hesitate to call it, because if you're calling for mayday, you're asking for resources to come help you, right? And especially if your problem is that you're lost, it may take a while for people to find you, so the sooner you call it, the quicker you get resources coming, because it does take a little bit of time to deploy those resources. Command isn't going to be able to get a team together right away. I mean, yes, they'll have a team together right away, but it'll take a minute or two for them to, get into the building, locate you, figure out what the problem is. And, the reality is, if you're calling mayday, you may have not more than a minute or two. So if you feel like any of those situations, that you're going to need it, go ahead and call for it. So, so for instance, again, on page 435, the reasons for your, maydays: air emergencies, loss and disoriented, entanglement, right? Okay. Rapid fire development would be another one. That'd be one of those imminent flashover situations I was talking about back in fire dynamics, and then, collapse or trapped, also kind of entanglement. So those would be like mayday situations. And we'll talk a little bit later at the end of this when we get to question number 8, how to actually call that mayday. So just know what the difference between a mayday is, why you're calling it. Like I said, it's you're an urgent, you need help now, or a fellow firefighter needs help. Okay. It's very specific radio traffic communication. All right, listen, describe the reason. Number 2, listen, describe the reasons for atmospheric hazards. So this can be found starting on page 440. When you're reading this, I mean, we're talking about search and rescue in this chapter. When you read the chapter and you get to this page 440 and you start talking about air monitoring, it looks a lot like they're talking about hazmat. Remember when I said in fire dynamics, all fires are hazmat calls, right? They're hazmat incidents complicated with the threat of, being burned up or collapsed on by the building. Okay. But it is also a hazmat. Okay. They're all hazmat because the nature of the smoke that's put off by these burning products is so toxic and thermal, the threat of thermal thermal injury is so high, they all require some kind of hazardous material protection in the form of really SCBAs and or turnout gear. Okay. So those answers can be found again, like I said, on page 440, pretty simple. And then identify 3 atmospheric hazards. Again, this would be on page 442. And here we're really talking about oxygen deficiency, right? We covered that in fire dynamics, right? The fire is burning up and using all the oxygen in the environment, okay? So it would be very low on oxygen in the environment. Flammability is a air monitoring hazard that you would use. That oftentimes you're talking about, that's when we talked about, again, fire dynamics, we talked about LEL, lower explosive limit, and UEL, upper explosive limit. That's what air monitoring will be testing for. What percentage of our LEL, what percentage of our lower explosive limit are we at? In structural search and rescue, LEL or flammability is not generally as much of an issue when we're talking post-fire suppression. That's when we would be monitoring. Pre-fire suppression, we're entering the building with the hose. We know it's toxic. We're dressed for that. So that atmosphere obviously is flammable. Remember, all those vapors are what's burning. But post-suppression, post-knockdown, when we're doing overhaul, I wouldn't say we're generally monitoring for flammability as much. We are monitoring for O2 deficiency. And then the last one would be toxicity. So O2 deficiency, flammability, toxicity, reasons for air monitoring. So toxicity, definitely post-fire suppression, something that we are concerned about. I showed you that list in the fire dynamics VLS of all of the potential products of combustion and how awful they are. A particular concern in the fire service right now, CO, and then hydrogen cyanide. Okay, both of which, the hydrogen cyanide and the CO, carbon monoxide, both of them limit your cell's ability to either receive or uptake oxygen from your cardiovascular system. So that's why it's so concerning to us, because if you think about a fire, we are already cardiovascularly stressed just from the process of firefighting itself, how physically strenuous it is. We're heat exhausted. And then there's some research that even, the heat causes, cardiovascular stress in and of itself, not to mention the workload on top of it. And then if we are not careful with our respiratory protection, now we're intaking carbon monoxide or hydrogen cyanide, and now we're further limiting our cardiovascular system from delivering oxygen to the cells that so desperately need oxygen at this point. So you can see why it's a threat for us. Long and short of it, 3 reasons why we're monitoring air. Definitely O2 deficiency, flammability, toxicity, and like I said, in the fire service right now, a lot of discussion about hydrogen cyanide and carbon monoxide post-fire suppression. So here I'm really talking about overhaul. So moral of that story, wear your SCBA even during overhaul. Like I said, in fire dynamics, you could make an argument that the off-gassing products of combustion post-fire suppression during overhaul are as dangerous, if not more dangerous, than during fire suppression. So definitely wear your SCBA even during overhaul. Okay, don't let the old salty dogs talking and taking your mask off. If you're breathing in smoke, you're breathing in toxic stuff. Not to mention on top of that, all the carcinogens, right? So we have the immediate threat of this carbon monoxide, the hydrogen cyanide, but then we have the long-term threat of the carcinogens that we're breathing in. It may not affect us for many years to come. So, okay, what's next? Number 4, tools and equipment rescue personnel should carry when conducting search and operations. I'm not going to go too much into this. I mean, all those answers can be found on page 452. What I will say is, as you're doing your practicals, think about the tools that you need to conduct a search, right? You need tools that, you need your gear, right? You need your SCBA. You definitely need radios, right? For communicating back with command or other companies about what you found, or if you found somebody, where you're bringing them out, right? Think about the hand tools that you need, anything you need for forcible entry, for reaching out, extending your reach, like with those Halligan bars, with pike or the axe handles, okay? Think about, if you're conducting a search, as an initial fire attack crew, while you're also trying to stretch the line, you're going to need a hose line. Or if you're just a search team and you have an attack crew, you're going to at least need them to have a hose line, hopefully to protect you. Thermal imaging cameras, definitely, if they're available, they're very useful. But you also have to, if you're going to use a thermal imaging camera, that's great. And I'm clearly recommending that you do use a thermal imaging camera. But also remember, you have to rely on good old-fashioned firefighting skills too, because thermal imaging cameras don't always tell the whole picture. You know, you can miss holes in the floor, you can miss things in piles of clothing or whatever, you know. So you still have to, you know, maintain contact, voice and touch contact with your fellow firefighters, try to stay on walls, reach out, actually put hands on things, you know, feel around. So thermal imaging cameras are tools for search and rescue. They are not the only thing you need for search and rescue. Okay. So again, list of those tools can be found on page, what I say, 452. One of the things that they say, I know for sure, because it comes over, they recommend ladders. That's not to mean that you're going to carry a ladder with you if you're doing on your hands and knees doing a search in a building, right? That's not what they mean. They mean if you need a ladder to get to the point where you're going to do search and rescue, okay? Or if you got somebody had called a mayday and told you that, you know, somebody fell through the floor, then you might want to bring a ladder and try to get down through that floor, okay? But you know, you're not going to be carrying a ladder with you down a hallway while you're trying to search bedrooms, right? You will be using for vent enter isolation and search, VEIS, which we'll discuss in just a little bit. But so when it says ladders in that list of tools, you know, don't think that they mean you're going to be carrying them with you. Unless, like I said, you had a specific use. Somebody told you you're going to need a ladder, a specific location. Okay. Number 5, the difference between primary and secondary search. Pretty straightforward. Page 456. You know, just remember, like a primary search is that down and dirty, quick, rapid one. You know, you really want to get in there, look for any obvious and viable victims. And then get them out quickly. This is all pre-fire suppression, pre-knockdown. It's generally primary search, okay? Secondary searches, they're slower, much more methodical, and they're, you know, generally done post-fire suppression, post-knockdown. So this is when you can take a little bit of time, slow down, open up the windows, and really go through every single corner, every single closet, every single pile of clothes in a room, okay? The big key there to remember is that on primary versus secondary search, you really don't want the same crew that did the primary search to do the secondary search. The reasoning for that is that it's really just psychology. If you missed it the first time, you're much more likely to miss it the second time, or just as likely to miss it the second time, because in your head, well, I already searched there, okay? So it's basically the secondary search is get another second set of eyes on it and have them do the search in a more methodical way, okay? So primary, secondary search, pretty straightforward. And then, like I said, the big key there is have a different crew do the secondary, if possible, than had done the primary, okay? All right, this is a big one. Number 6, describe in detail the VEIS, or Vent Enter Isolation Search acronym, and what that means, okay? So basically, this is, again, and I talked a little bit about it, I think, on the last Tailboard chat. So Vent Enter Isolation Search, VEIS, is when you are going to be doing a search pattern in a room that is, or in a room that is not the fire room. So generally it is removed from the fire room or adjacent to the fire, main body of fire. And it is a quick, rapid search pattern that is done without the support of a hose line, okay? Oftentimes it's done above the seat of the fire, if it's a 2-story building, and it's usually done, you're making entrance, usually through a window. I guess you could do it if it was a single story or like a walkout basement, you could go through a door, but generally when we think about it, we think about doing it through a window, but it doesn't have to be, okay? And so this is where, let's say the scenario would be you had a 2-story building and you had a fire in the kitchen, and it was really rocking and rolling and really kind of expanding out into the living areas on the first floor, and you got crews making attack on the first floor. Now you think you have viable living areas, and this is the thing about VEIS, is it should only be done in areas where you think it's viable for victims to be surviving, okay? So you think you got viable, survivable areas on the second floor in the bedroom areas, right? Most 2 stories, bedrooms on the second floor. And so you want to search that and you want to do it quick because you think it's viable and you want to get these victims out. So you got a primary attack going in on the first floor. You've decided you're going to do a VEIS. So you're going to go to the window of that bedroom. Okay. You're going to vent the window by breaking the window. Okay. You need at least 2 people at this point in time, maybe 3 if you got them. Okay. You're going to vent the window. You're going to enter, enter. You're going to enter through that window. Okay. Remember, sound the floor. You're going to be going head first. You're going to sound the floor with your fist or your tool as you go through. Okay. The next thing to do is remember, you're operating adjacent to the fire floor or removed from the fire floor or above the fire floor, okay, without the support of a hand lens. So remember compartmentalization. We want to slow down the spread of fire and toxic products of combustion through this room. So now you want to isolate it. So VEI, you want to isolate it. So you got to get to the door as quickly as you can before you even really search. Go right to the door. Go right to the door, shut the door. Now you've isolated that room and now you've bought yourself some time to do the actual search, the S part of the VEIS. Okay, isolate that door, close that, stop that smoke and fire from coming into the room, and then start searching and communicating with the person who may be outside. So, the way this would work, the way we train on this where I work is, 2 people go up the ladder, 1 guy stays on the ladder at the door, at the window, and he's got eyes, he's got verbal communication. Oftentimes he has the tick, okay, his verbal communication with the person doing the search. That person is doing the search, okay, they find a victim, okay, they bring the victim to the person on the ladder, and then they assist bringing that victim out on the ladder. So the guy on the ladder or girl on the ladder can then lower the victim to the ground, okay. That would be a VEIS. You vent the window, you enter the room, you isolate the room by closing the door, and then you search the room. Okay, VEIS. Minimum 2 people to get this done correctly. Okay, you don't want to do this by yourself, obviously. We never want to work on a fire around by ourselves, especially, without the support of a hose line above a fire, right? Okay, so that's VEIS. It's pretty important. It's a high risk, high reward operation, so you are operating at high risk because you're operating a fire building and you do not have a fire hose to protect yourself. Okay, but done correctly, especially if you can isolate quickly, then you can have pretty good results with it. So let's say in that scenario you go to the door, to the window, break the window, reach down, and there's a victim. Okay, unconscious victim. All right, so already your search has found a victim. You're still going to have to enter that building to get that victim to the window sill. All right. So even though you found the victim, right, you're still going to want to run over, close that door, stop that spread of smoke into the room, and buy yourself a little bit of breathing room while you can now begin to manipulate the patient or victim out of the window. Okay, so even if you find a victim immediately, you're still going to want to isolate. Okay. All right. All right. Page number 7, 6 victim removal techniques. All that stuff is on page 466 in your skill sheets. These are, incline drags, webbing drags, litter drags, things like that. I know you guys have already started on some of those in the practicals. Again, very much part of the skill and craft of firefighting, like moving down victims is very difficult. Dead weight is very difficult to manipulate. And it's a lot of work. That's where a lot of the physicality of firefighting comes from. It will completely and totally exhaust you. So, but pay attention to that, do it right. One of the things is oftentimes very challenging to us, not just dragging victims, but then like say in that VEIS scenario, getting them up and out of a window. That can be very challenging. In one of those situations where I would say, don't be afraid to ask for help. It may take 2 or 3 people to get one person out of a windowsill, especially if they're larger. In the nighttime, when if you go to a bedroom in the middle of the night and you find a victim, I mean, they may not be clothed, right? So there's nothing to grab onto. You can use clothing as handles. Oftentimes naked people are very difficult to move, so don't be afraid to ask for help. And use what tools and devices you have available. Webbing is a very good tool. You can create a handle with webbing, or sheets off the bed. If you need to pull a sheet or a blanket off the bed and roll the victim up in a sheet and drag them, do whatever you have to do. Okay. But again, those answers for that question can be found on page 466. And then in the skill sheets kind of actually defines and explains what methods they're talking about. Okay. All right, here we are getting back to Maydays, just as I promised. Okay. Again, I don't quite understand why the chapter starts at Maydays and then jumps back to them 30 pages later without just describing it. Okay. But Mayday broadcast acronyms. And again, like I said, a Mayday is a very, very specific type of radio communication. Very important, and remember, when you're making a Mayday call, you're under a lot of stress, a lot of physical and mental stress. Conceivably, you think you're about to die or one of your friends is about to die. That's why you're calling a Mayday. Okay. So it's really important that you get it right. You're asking command for assistance. So you have to do it in a way where command can understand what the problem is and what help command can provide you. So it helps a lot if you use these acronyms to kind of organize your thoughts and your communication. And I will also say this, you do need to practice these. You have to train in them. Because if you don't practice them where they become second nature, when you do need it, you're going to find it very difficult to think about it and operate through it. You really need to be working on muscle memory when we do Maydays. So the 2 acronyms that they recommend for organizing your radio communication and Mayday situation are found on page 468, and they are LUNAR and LIPS. I actually use a different one. I'm not going to confuse you with it, but I'll discuss the 2 that are used in the book. It doesn't really matter which one you use. You pick what's easiest for you to remember. But whatever one it is that you use, practice it, in your head, practice it out loud in your drills. Make sure that you're good at it. Okay. So for the first one, LUNAR, which is spelled LUNAR. Okay. The acronym is location. So where are you? And remember, in a Mayday, you may not know where you are. That may be that you're lost, but you probably know what floor you're on. Okay. You know where you were sent, so you can say, I'm somewhere on the 2nd floor. I don't know where I am. I'm lost. I'm on the 2nd floor. Okay. The unit, that's you. Okay. That's your identification, who you are, right? It's very important that command knows who's calling the Mayday or who you're calling the Mayday for. So the next one is name. So unit and name go together. Okay. So, you might say, this is Lieutenant Tufts from Engine 3. So I gave him my unit, Engine 3, and then my name. And the name is really important because let's say, again, you can call Mayday for yourself, you can call Mayday for somebody else, right? So let's say I'm on a 2nd floor with my crew and a firefighter went through the floor, right? I'll call a Mayday for that firefighter. This is Engine 3, firefighter Carp fell through the floor. So now command knows that they're looking for firefighter Carp. Okay. Now, say 2 people on the 1st floor witnessed that, saw somebody come through the floor. Okay. Now they're going to be calling Maydays, and if they can see the name on the tag, they can say, yeah, we have firefighter Carp fell through the floor. So command knows that there may be 3 or 4 Maydays called, but only one person who's in trouble. Okay. Or vice versa. You may be calling a Mayday for yourself. And if you don't tell them who you are, what unit you are or what your name is, he doesn't know who they're looking for. We got a Mayday somewhere on the 2nd floor, but I don't know who it is. And if you just call Engine 3, this is Engine 3, I'm lost on the 2nd floor. Is all of Engine 3 lost? just one person. Okay, so it's really important that you identify what unit you are, and by giving your unit command, if they've done accountability right, will know what your assignment was, which will give them some indication as to where you were working and what your problems may be. If you were assigned to the roof and now you're calling a mayday, command can assume that, maybe you've fallen through the roof or you have fire conditions on the roof that won't allow you off. Okay. So unit, your name, so location, unit, name, your assignment, okay, and air supply. So the A part is the assignment and air supply. So this is engine 3, we're doing search on the second floor. I've become lost, engine 3, firefighter Tufts, I'm on the second floor, we were doing search, I've become lost. Give your air, I'm down to, and if you have a heads up display, I'm down to 1 light, or I'm down to, a quarter of my air, or I'm down to 1,000 pounds, whatever you can do to indicate what your air supply is, okay? And then lastly, once you've identified who you are, where you are, okay, then resources needed. And here I would add also the problem, right? I'm lost, okay, and I need crews on the second floor to help find me, or I've had ceiling collapse, I'm trapped, I need crews upstairs to help get this stuff off of me, okay? So what resources do you need? Or I'm low on air, I just need air, I'm lost, I need air, okay? So, so the lunar acronym is location, unit, name, assignment / air supply, and then your resources needed. So that gives command a pretty good idea who you are, where you are, what the problem is, and what they can do to help you, okay? The next one is the LIPS, L-I-P-S. So that's going to be location, identification, problem, and survival. So again, location, where you are, and it's to the best of your knowledge, okay? Identification, again, here, give your crew and your name. So what crew you were assigned to and your name. Because let's say you get lost and you're calling, I'm lost on the second floor, but your lieutenant is calling for you also. Again, 2 maydays called, but only 1 person in trouble, okay? So identification will be your unit and your name, so command knows who they're looking for. What the problem is, I'm lost, I'm low on air and I'm lost, I don't know where I am, okay? And then survival, again, this is really more like the resources needed. And what are you also doing about it, right? So I'm lost, I'm on the second floor, I'm looking for a window is what I'm doing. That's part of the survival. And here's what I need from you. I need somebody to help locate me. So again, gives command an idea of where you are, who you are, what the problem is, and what they can do to help you survive, okay? So lunar, location, unit, name, assignment / air, and resources needed, or LIPS, location, identification, problem, and survival, okay? And on our last, it was the previous delivery of this program, we had just finished this section and we had a crew of our students get caught on a second floor in rapidly changing fire conditions, and they called maydays using one of these 2 acronyms. I think 2 people jumped from a window, and I don't know if the third one was two of our students and their chief, and they all made it out. Some of them were pretty injured, but they all made it out. But they used these acronyms to call their mayday. Okay, so it does work. And then lastly, RIC, which is the Rapid Intervention Crew. This is question number 9. Again, this would be found on page 473. So what is RIC, Rapid Intervention? It's the idea that it's a crew that's outside ready to intervene in those mayday situations. Okay, so they would have had tools assembled, be briefed on where crews are operating. A good rapid intervention crew will have done their own 360, get an idea of the building, get an idea where people are working, done a size up of things that they think they're going to need. If you have a single story building, you're not going to need a 24-foot extension ladder assembled with your RIC company, okay? So their whole job is that they are set aside and they are there to assist in case of a mayday situation. Okay, so how does that play out on the fire ground, right? So the NFPA has a regulation that you have to have for every 2 firefighters working inside, you have to have 2 firefighters outside, like 50% geared, ready to go. In other words, basically geared up with everything, put their air packs on. And the idea is that they could assist any crew who gets in trouble. So that's the 2 in, 2 out rule. RIC is kind of an extension of that, where not only do we have people outside who can assist if there's problems, we've designated a crew specifically for that job function, and they are gearing up and thinking in that mode at all times during that fireground operation. So you have your 2 in, 2 out, which is really good safety. And oftentimes those 2 out may have to be a RIC crew all of a sudden, okay? But a RIC crew does not engage in other fireground activities that would prevent them from assisting in a Mayday situation. They may help a company throw a ladder, but they need to be able to peel away right away if a Mayday is called, okay? And they are assigned by command, generally, further along in the firefight. So initial companies get on scene, begin fire attack and search, maybe that 3rd or 4th engine that pulls up may get assigned to RIC. Assemble your tools, get in a good staging location in front of the building, do your 360, be prepared. If I call for you, you're going to go save the Mayday. That's what RIC is, okay? So then the tools and equipment, again, page 473. So again, we talk about 2 in, 2 out. That's a safety thing that FPA requires, that we have to have as many people outside as we have people. For every 2 people inside, we have to have 2 people outside ready to go either relieve them or rescue them. RIC is when we actually assign a crew to the function of firefighter rescue, okay? Like I said, I'm not gonna be available this week by email, but I will be available by text. I apologize for that, but I'll be gone all week. So your grading will be done by Wendell. I think you guys have done a good job. And that's all I got for this week. If you have any questions, again, please text me. So far, your homework's looking pretty good. So you guys never let me down. So thank you for that. And I think you guys should have a practical weekend this weekend, I think. So please stay safe, stay warm, and take care of each other, have each other's back. Okay. Have a good week, and I will see you next week. All right. Ciao.